Every man will face it, pain that breaks him, rejection that burns, chaos that leaves nothing standing. Most will curse it, run from it, drown in it. But the Stoic knows better. He understands that suffering is not punishment, it's preparation. That silence is not noise, it builds strength. That discipline is not comfort, it's freedom. This is your forge. Here, you'll learn to endure without losing yourself, to stand firm when everything else falls apart. If you walk this path with us, subscribe to Stoic audiobooks and build the calm, unshakable strength every man was meant to carry. Chapter 1. The truth about pain you've been avoiding. Pain isn't the problem. Your relationship with it is. You've been taught to run from it, to medicate it, to distract yourself until it passes, scroll until it fades, drink until it dulls. Society has given you 1,000 ways to avoid the one thing you need to confront: the raw, unfiltered sensation of being broken open by life. But here's what nobody tells you. Pain is information. It's your body's alarm system, your mind's warning signal, your soul's way of saying something fundamental has shifted and you need to pay attention. When you run from pain, you don't escape it. You just delay the lesson it came to teach. Think about the last time something genuinely hurt you, not the minor inconveniences you complain about. The real pain. The breakup that left you staring at your phone at 2 a.m. The career setback that made you question your entire direction. The betrayal that rewired how you see people. What did you do with it? Most men bury it. They pack it down with work, with gym sessions, with new relationships they're not ready for. They build elaborate systems to avoid feeling what needs to be felt. And then they wonder why they're exhausted, why they're numb, why nothing seems to touch them anymore, not even the good things. The Stoics understood something profound. Pain is neutral. It's not good or evil. It simply is. Epictetus, who spent years as a slave with a permanently damaged leg, said it plainly. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Not as a motivational slogan, as a survival mechanism. You cannot control the pain that comes, the injury, the loss, the humiliation. These are external forces, and external forces are, by definition, beyond your dominion. But your response? That's entirely yours. That's the only territory you actually govern. Most men give away this power without realizing it. They let pain dictate their identity. They become the man who was cheated on, the man who failed, the man who wasn't chosen. They wear their wounds like uniforms, announcing their damage to anyone who'll listen. This is weakness, masquerading as depth. Real strength is processing pain in silence, feeling it fully, understanding what it's teaching you, and then integrating that lesson without making it your entire personality. The warrior doesn't show everyone his scars. He acknowledges them privately and moves forward with the knowledge they provided. Consider physical pain first, because it's the simplest model. You're lifting heavy weight. Your muscles scream. They're tearing on a microscopic level. This is literal damage to your tissue. But you don't stop. You don't panic. You understand this pain is the price of growth. The tearing creates the rebuilding. The discomfort signals adaptation. Emotional pain works the same way, but most men haven't been taught this. They think emotional pain means something is wrong with them, that they're weak for feeling it, that real men should be immune. Bullshit. Real men feel everything. They just don't perform their feelings for an audience. They don't broadcast their breakdowns or monetize their trauma. They sit with the discomfort until they understand its message. Then they extract the wisdom and discard the rest. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the Roman world, wrote his meditations in the quiet of military camps and palace chambers, not for publication, for survival. He was reminding himself daily that pain, whether from loss, criticism, or physical ailment, was simply an event in nature, neither more nor less significant than a storm or a sunset. You have power over your mind, not outside events, he wrote. Realize this, and you will find strength. This isn't about positive thinking. It's about accurate thinking. You're not trying to convince yourself that pain doesn't hurt. You're recognizing that the pain itself is not the enemy. Your reaction to it, your relationship with it, your decision to let it define you or refine you, that's where your power lives. Let's make this concrete. You lose your job. The pain is immediate and multifaceted. Financial fear, ego damage, uncertainty about the future, shame about what others will think. These sensations are real. They exist. Denying them is delusion. But here's the fork in the road. You can let this pain consume your identity. Tell yourself stories about being a failure, spiral into victimhood and bitterness. Or you can sit with the discomfort, acknowledge what went wrong honestly, extract the lessons about your performance or the industry or your strategy, and rebuild from a more informed position. Same pain, completely different outcomes. The pain didn't determine your path. Your relationship with it did. Most men fail here because they confuse feeling pain with wallowing in it. They think sitting with discomfort means marinating in self-pity. It doesn't. Sitting with pain means observing it without judgment, understanding its message, and then acting on that information. The pain of rejection tells you something about fit, compatibility, or timing. The pain of failure tells you something about preparation, strategy, or execution. The pain of loss reminds you what actually mattered. None of these lessons are available if you're too busy running or too committed to playing the victim. Seneca, who faced exile, the loss of wealth, and eventually execution, wrote extensively about pain's role in character formation. Difficulties strengthen the mind, he observed, as labor does the body. He wasn't romanticizing suffering. He was acknowledging its function. You don't seek pain. That's masochism. But when it arrives, and it will arrive, you meet it like a man who understands its purpose. You don't collapse under its weight. You don't pretend it isn't there. You feel it fully, learn from it completely, and emerge with knowledge that cannot be taken from you. This is the first principle of survival. Pain is the teacher you didn't want, but desperately need. Here's what changes when you accept this. You stop being afraid of difficulty. You stop organizing your entire life around comfort and safety. You start taking necessary risks because you know that even if they result in pain, you have the tools to metabolize that pain into wisdom. You become dangerous, not to others, but to the forces that keep men small. Fear, comfort, approval-seeking, risk aversion. When you're no longer controlled by the fear of pain, you're no longer controllable. Think about the men you admire most. The ones with real gravity, real presence. What do they have in common? They've been through something. They've faced pain that would have broken weaker men, and they emerged not unscathed, but transformed. Their eyes carry weight. Their words carry truth. Their presence carries authority earned through suffering they didn't broadcast. Everything starts here, with pain, with your willingness to stop running from it and start learning from it. The rest of this guide builds on this foundation. But if you can't master this first principle, nothing else will help you. You've already felt the pain. Now learn what it came to teach you. Chapter 2. Rejection is redirection. When people choose wrong, she chose someone else. The job went to another candidate. Your friends stopped calling. The market rejected your work. The respect you thought you'd earned evaporated overnight. Rejection cuts deeper than physical pain because it attacks something more fundamental than your body. It questions your worth, your value, your right to be chosen, wanted, included in the tribe. And here's the part nobody wants to hear. Rejection is almost always the right decision. Not because you're worthless, but because the fit was wrong, the timing was off, or your development wasn't complete yet. The universe isn't punishing you. It's protecting you from investments that would have failed and connections that would have drained you. But your ego doesn't hear that message. Your ego hears, you weren't enough. And your ego will do everything in its power to make you believe that narrative, to collapse your entire identity around that single moment of not being chosen. This is where most men break. They take rejection personally. They internalize it as a permanent statement about their value rather than a temporary mismatch between what they offered and what was needed in that specific context at that specific time. The Stoics understood ego as the primary source of unnecessary suffering. When Epictetus taught his students about control, he was teaching them to separate their self-worth from external validation. If you want to improve, he said, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Translation: stop letting other people's choices determine your sense of self. Their rejection doesn't diminish you. It reveals information about compatibility, timing, or readiness, information you needed but didn't want. Think about the last major rejection you faced, the one that actually hurt. Not the minor no's you brushed off, but the one that made you question yourself at a fundamental level. What did you do with it? Most men do one of two things. They either collapse into self-pity, telling themselves they're not good enough and never will be, or they harden into bitterness, deciding everyone else is wrong and the world is against them. Both responses are ego protection mechanisms. Both keep you weak. The third option, the Stoic option, is rarer because it requires genuine humility and self-examination. You acknowledge the rejection hurt. You feel the full weight of not being chosen. Then you ask the only question that matters: what was this rejection teaching me? Maybe it revealed gaps in your preparation. Maybe it exposed areas where you weren't as strong as you thought. Maybe it showed you that you were pursuing something for the wrong reasons: ego, fear, or external pressure rather than genuine alignment. Or maybe, and this is crucial, the rejection had nothing to do with you at all. Maybe the other person was broken, the company was dysfunctional, or the opportunity was poisoned. Maybe being rejected saved you from months or years of misery you couldn't see coming. You can't know which it is if you're too busy defending your ego or wallowing in self-pity. Both reactions prevent the honest assessment that turns rejection from a wound into a compass. Marcus Aurelius faced rejection constantly. Political rivals undermined him. Military commanders questioned his strategies. Even his own wife was rumored to be unfaithful. He could have used his absolute power to punish these rejections. Instead, he used them as opportunities for self-examination. When you wake up in the morning, he wrote, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They're like this because they can't tell good from evil. He wasn't being cynical. He was being prepared. He expected rejection, criticism, and betrayal as natural features of human interaction. This expectation didn't make him bitter. It made him free. When rejection came, it wasn't a surprise or a threat to his identity. It was Tuesday. This is the frame shift that changes everything. You stop expecting the world to validate you. You stop needing people to choose you to feel complete. You develop your own internal compass for value and worth, independent of external approval. This doesn't mean you become an island. Humans need connection. But you stop outsourcing your self-worth to people who don't have your best interests at heart and circumstances you can't control. Let's get practical about romantic rejection, because this is where men suffer most unnecessarily. She didn't choose you. That's the fact. Now, what's the truth beneath it? Maybe you weren't compatible in ways that would have revealed themselves painfully later. Maybe she wasn't in a place to recognize value when she saw it. Maybe you were operating from neediness or performance rather than genuine self-possession. All of these are useful pieces of information. None of them mean you're unworthy of love or connection. They mean this particular connection wasn't right, and you're now free to find one that is, but only if you extract the lesson instead of the trauma. Most men replay rejection like a horror film, examining every moment for proof of their inadequacy. This is ego protection disguised as self-reflection. Real self-reflection asks different questions. Was I showing up authentically? Was I choosing this person from genuine desire or fear of being alone? What patterns do I keep repeating that lead to the same outcomes? These questions require brutal honesty. They also require you to consider that maybe, just maybe, being rejected was a gift. Maybe she saved you from a relationship that would have consumed your peace, drained your energy, and left you smaller than you started. But you only see this in hindsight if you're willing to. Oh, do the work now. If you're committed to becoming the kind of man who doesn't need a specific person to choose him because he's built something internally that can't be taken away. Professional rejection follows the same logic. You didn't get the job. The client chose someone else. Your pitch was ignored. These are facts. They hurt, but they're also data points. Maybe your skills need development. Maybe your presentation needs work. Maybe you're targeting the wrong market or pitching to people who can't see your value. Or maybe the rejection protected you from a toxic work environment, an unethical client, or a project that would have derailed your actual path. You don't know which it is if you're too busy taking it personally. Rejection is only devastating when you make it about your fundamental worth instead of about fit, timing, or information gaps. Seneca, who lost his wealth and position multiple times, wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." He wasn't romanticizing hardship. He was acknowledging that rejection and failure are the grinding stones that reveal your true composition. The weak reject rejection. They collapse or rage against it. The strong accept it as feedback, extract the useful information, discard the rest, and move forward with better data than they had before. Here's what changes when you adopt this frame. You start taking more risks. You ask for what you want without attachment to the outcome. You put your work out there knowing some people will hate it. You pursue relationships knowing some people won't choose you back. You do all of this not because you're immune to rejection, but because you understand rejection is part of the selection process. Every no brings you closer to the right yes. Every person who doesn't choose you clears space for someone who will. Every closed door points toward the one that's actually meant to open. This isn't positive thinking, it's strategic thinking. You're not trying to feel good about rejection. You're trying to use it productively instead of letting it use you. The man who fears rejection organizes his entire life around avoiding it. He plays small, takes safe routes, never asks for what he really wants, dies having never been fully rejected because he never fully tried. The man who understands rejection walks into rooms knowing he might not be chosen, and does it anyway because the alternative, playing safe forever, is a slower, more certain death. Consider the men whose work you admire most, the writers, artists, entrepreneurs, leaders who created something meaningful. How many times were they rejected before they broke through? How many people told them no before the right person said yes? Rejection didn't stop them. It refined them. It burned away the unnecessary, exposed the weak points, forced them to get better or give up. The ones you know about chose to get better. You're at the same crossroads every time rejection arrives. Give up or get better. Collapse or extract the lesson. Let it destroy you or let it develop you. Most men make this choice unconsciously based on how they feel in the moment. The strong make it consciously based on who they're committed to becoming. Start here. The next time you're rejected, and there will be a next time, give yourself 24 hours to feel it fully. Anger, sadness, shame, whatever comes up. Feel it without judgment. This is the human part. You're allowed to hurt. Then, after 24 hours, shift to analysis. What actually happened? What was I bringing to this situation? What could I have done differently? What assumptions was I making that weren't accurate? What does this rejection reveal about my readiness, my approach, or my target? Answer honestly, not harshly. Honestly. Treat yourself like a valued friend who needs truth, not like an enemy who deserves punishment. Then act on what you learned. Adjust your approach. Develop the weak areas. Change your target if necessary. But keep moving. The rejection only wins if it stops you. If you keep moving with better information than you had before, the rejection just became the most valuable teacher you didn't want. This is how you transform rejection from enemy to ally. Not by pretending it doesn't hurt, not by hardening yourself against feeling, but by processing it completely and extracting its gift, the information and redirection you needed but couldn't see before. The world will keep rejecting you. People will keep choosing others. Opportunities will keep passing you by. These are guarantees in a life of risk and ambition. What's not guaranteed is whether you'll let these experiences break you or build you. The Stoics chose to be built, not because they were special, because they understood rejection as a feature of ambitious living, not a bug. When you want things, some things will want you back and some won't. Your job is to find the ones that do while learning from the ones that don't. Everything else is ego, and ego is the enemy of growth, progress, and peace. Kill it slowly through repeated rejection that you survive and learn from. Every rejection you metabolize into growth is one less thing your ego can use against you. You weren't chosen this time. Good. Now you're free to find what actually fits. Now you have information you didn't have before. Now you can adjust, improve, and try again with better aim. This is the path. Not comfortable, not easy, but true. Rejection isn't the end of your story. It's often the beginning of the right one. Chapter 3. Chaos is the default. Stop expecting order. Your life is never going to be stable. Not really. Not permanently. The moment you think you finally got everything figured out, something will shift. The relationship will change. The market will crash. Your health will falter. The plans you made will become irrelevant overnight. This isn't pessimism, it's realism. And most men suffer unnecessarily because they keep expecting permanence in a fundamentally impermanent world. You want order. You crave predictability. You build elaborate systems and strategies designed to control outcomes. And then you're shocked, devastated, when chaos inevitably intrudes. When the carefully constructed life you spent years building falls apart in a moment. The Stoics had a term for this delusion. They called it living contrary to nature. You're fighting against the fundamental character of existence instead of flowing with it. And that fight is exhausting you, distorting your perception, and setting you up for continuous disappointment. Marcus Aurelius watched plague ravage his empire, wars he didn't choose, political instability he couldn't prevent, personal losses he couldn't stop. He could have raged against this chaos. Instead, he wrote, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." He wasn't suggesting you can think your way out of chaos. He was pointing at something deeper. Your relationship with chaos determines your experience of it. When you expect order, chaos destroys you. When you expect chaos, you can navigate it. Think about the last time your plans fell apart, the project that collapsed, the relationship that ended, the health crisis that emerged. How did you respond? Most men respond with some version of, "This shouldn't be happening. Why is this happening to me? How do I get back to how things were?" All of these responses assume order is the default and chaos is the aberration. The opposite is true. Chaos is the default. Order is the temporary illusion you create through effort, attention, and often luck. And the moment you forget this, chaos will remind you. This isn't about becoming passive or fatalistic. It's about developing what the Stoics called the art of acquiescence, accepting what is while actively working with it, not against it. Let's get concrete. You're building a business. You've planned everything. Market research, financial projections, product development, launch strategy. You're certain you've accounted for every variable. Then the economy shifts. A competitor emerges. Your key employee quits. Technology changes. Regulations update. Your plan is now worthless. Do you collapse because reality didn't follow your script? Or do you adapt, pivoting with new information while maintaining your core mission? The man who expected order is broken. His entire identity was wrapped up in the plan working. When the plan fails, he fails. The man who expected chaos is energized. He saw this as inevitable. He's already thinking 3 moves ahead, adapting to new terrain. Same circumstances, completely different experiences. The difference isn't intelligence or preparation. It's frame. One man thought he could impose permanent order. The other man knew he was always improvising in controlled chaos. Epictetus, who had no control over his own freedom for most of his life, taught this principle relentlessly. "Make the best use of what is in your power," he said, "and take the rest as it happens." Not control everything. Not hope for the best. Take it as it happens. This is active engagement with chaos, not passive surrender to it. You're not giving up. you're facing reality accurately so you can work with it effectively. Most men are exhausted because they're fighting battles they can't win. They're trying to control other people's behavior, economic conditions, timing, outcomes, all external, all beyond their actual dominion. So they pour energy into a black hole and wonder why they're depleted. The Stoic frame conserves energy by focusing only on what you actually control: your reactions, your effort, your attitude, your interpretation. Everything else. It's weather. You prepare for it. You adapt to it. You don't rage at it for not being what you wanted. Consider your relationships. You want your partner to be consistent, your friends to be reliable, your family to be supportive. These are reasonable desires. They're also demands for order in fundamentally chaotic systems. People change. Circumstances shift. What worked yesterday might not work today. When you expect static relationships, any change feels like betrayal. When you expect evolving relationships, you can adapt together or move apart cleanly. Neither option involves the collapse that comes from demanding permanence where it can't exist. This doesn't mean you accept mistreatment. It means you stop being shocked when people act according to their nature rather than your expectations. The friend who's always been flaky will continue being flaky. The partner who prioritizes work will continue prioritizing work. The family member who criticizes will keep criticizing. You can decide these patterns don't work for you and create distance. That's exercising control where you have it, over your associations and boundaries. What you can't do is change other people through force of will or righteous anger. That's trying to impose order on chaos. It never works. Seneca watched friends betray him, students disappoint him, political allies abandon him. He could have become bitter. Instead, he wrote, "Nothing happens to the wise man contrary to his expectation. He does not expect that all things will happen as he wishes, but rather expects that some will not happen as he wishes." This is the shift. You stop expecting the world to comply with your preferences. You start expecting the world to be itself, chaotic and predictable, indifferent to your plans. This expectation doesn't make you cynical. It makes you prepared. Here's what changes practically. You build redundancy into your systems. You don't put all your resources in one basket. You maintain multiple income streams. You cultivate various relationships. You develop portable skills. You create flexibility in your plans. Not because you're paranoid, because you understand chaos will eventually touch every area of your life, and preparation isn't about preventing it, it's about surviving it with minimum damage and maximum learning. You also stop taking things personally. When markets crash, they're not rejecting you. When relationships end, it's not always about your worth. When plans fail, it's not cosmic punishment. These are natural fluctuations in chaotic systems. Your job is to observe, adapt, and continue. The man who takes chaos personally is always wounded. He interprets every setback as a referendum on his value. The man who expects chaos contextualizes setbacks as information about what's not working and adjusts accordingly. Think about natural disasters. A flood doesn't care about your feelings. It's water following gravity and topography. You can rage at it, or you can move to higher ground. The flood doesn't change based on your emotional response, but your survival does. Most chaos in life works the same way. Economic downturns, industry disruptions, relationship dynamics, health challenges. These forces are largely impersonal. They're not happening to you specifically. They're happening, and you happen to be in the path. This perspective isn't cold, it's liberating. When you stop taking chaos personally, you stop wasting energy on why it's happening and start focusing that energy on how to navigate it. This is practical stoicism, not philosophical, practical. Let's talk about the chaos you create internally. B. Because external chaos is inevitable, but internal chaos is often self-inflicted. You create unnecessary turbulence through attachment, expectation, and resistance to what is. You're attached to specific outcomes. When reality delivers different outcomes, you suffer, not because the new outcome is objectively bad, but because it's not what you wanted. This is internal chaos you're generating by insisting reality conform to your preferences. You expect people to behave certain ways. When they don't, you're disturbed, not because their behavior is necessarily wrong, but because it violated your expectations. Again, internal chaos from external expectations you can't control. You resist what's already happened. You replay events, wishing they'd gone differently. You argue with reality in your mind. This resistance creates friction, and friction creates suffering. The event is over. Resistance doesn't change it. It just keeps you locked in a battle with the past. Marcus Aurelius addressed this directly. Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs. He's not saying everything happens for a reason in some cosmic plan. He's saying that whatever happened is now part of your reality, and you can either accept it as your starting point or waste energy wishing it were different. One approach works, the other doesn't. Most men choose the approach that doesn't work because they haven't been taught this frame. They've been taught that success means controlling outcomes, that strength means imposing order, that wisdom means predicting the future. All lies. Success means adapting effectively. Strength means maintaining composure amid chaos. Wisdom means recognizing what you can't control and focusing on what you can. Start practicing this today. Notice when you're expecting order where chaos is guaranteed. Notice when you're attached to outcomes you can't control. Notice when you're resisting what's already happened. Then gently redirect. I prefer X, but I can work with Y. I hope for this outcome, but I'll adapt to that one. I wish this hadn't happened, but here we are. What now? These small shifts in language reflect massive shifts in frame. You're training yourself to meet reality as it is, not as you wish it were. This is the foundation of surviving chaos without being destroyed by it. The world will keep surprising you. Plans will keep failing. Relationships will keep shifting. Your body will keep aging. Markets will keep fluctuating. None of this is evidence that something is wrong. All of this is evidence that you're alive in a chaotic universe. Your ancestors survived because they adapted to chaos better than the competition. You have that same adaptive capacity, but you've been trained to suppress it, to seek safety and certainty, instead of embracing adaptability and resilience. The Stoics are offering you a different training, not to control chaos, not to prevent chaos, to dance with it, to see it coming, to adjust your stance, to maintain your balance while everything shifts. This is strength, not the rigid strength that breaks under unexpected pressure, the flexible strength that bends without breaking, adapts without losing core identity, survives by flowing rather than fighting. Cut the fantasy of permanent order. Cut the expectation that life should be stable. Cut the belief that you failed when chaos intrudes. What remains is you, standing in the center of constant change, responding with intelligence instead of panic. This is the work. This is how you survive chaos without becoming chaotic yourself, not by imposing false order, but by developing internal stability that doesn't depend on external conditions. The chaos isn't going away. Your relationship with it is the only variable you control. Change that relationship, and you change everything. Chapter 4. Physical discipline as mental armor. Your body is either your ally or your enemy. There is no neutral ground. Every day you're either building it into a tool that serves you or letting it decay into a liability that limits you. The Stoics understood what modern men have forgotten. Physical discipline is not about aesthetics or performance. It's about maintaining the vehicle that carries your mind through life. When your body is weak, undisciplined, neglected, your mind follows. When your body is strong, controlled, resilient, your mind inherits these qualities. This isn't motivational rhetoric. It's observable reality. Show me a man who cannot control his physical appetites, who eats without discipline, trains without consistency, sleeps without structure, and I'll show you a man who struggles with mental discipline in every other domain. The connection is direct. Your body is the first and most immediate thing you can control. It's the training ground for all other discipline. You cannot build a strong mind in a weak, untrained body. The signals are crossed. Your brain receives constant feedback that you lack control, and it adjusts your self-image accordingly. Marcus Aurelius trained physically despite being emperor. He wrestled, rode horses, practiced weapons, not because he needed to fight, he had armies for that, because he understood that physical weakness breeds mental weakness, that a soft body creates a soft mind, that discipline in one domain strengthens discipline in all domains. The impediment to action advances action, he wrote. What stands in the way becomes the way. This was true of physical challenges as much as philosophical ones. The resistance of weight, the discomfort of training, the difficulty of pushing past limits, these weren't obstacles to avoid. They were the path itself. Most men approach fitness backwards. They train to look good, to impress others, to hit arbitrary numbers that mean nothing outside the gym. This is ego-driven training, and ego-driven training is fragile. When results slow, when motivation wanes, when the external validation stops coming, the training stops too. Stoic training is different. You train because training is what disciplined men do. You train to maintain control over the one thing that's entirely yours, your physical form. You train to prove to yourself daily that you can do difficult things, that you can choose discomfort when comfort is available, that you are not a slave to your body's preferences. This frame shift changes everything. You're no longer dependent on motivation or results. You train because you committed to it, and you're the kind of man who honors commitments to himself. Rain or shine, motivated or not, tired or energized. The training happens because you decided it happens. This is mental armor being forged in physical practice. Epictetus, whose leg was permanently damaged, couldn't train like others, but he maintained what physical discipline he could because he understood the principle. The body you can control teaches you how to control everything else. No man is free who is not master of himself, he taught, and mastery starts with the body. Think about your current relationship with physical discipline. Be honest. Do you train consistently without excuses? Do you eat according to your goals or your impulses? Do you get adequate sleep, or do you sacrifice it for entertainment? Do you move your body daily, or only when you feel like it? These aren't moral judgments. They're diagnostic questions. Your answers reveal whether you control your physical vehicle or it controls you, whether discipline is your default or exception, whether you're building mental armor or mental vulnerability. Here's what most men don't realize. Every time you skip a planned workout, you're training yourself that commitments are optional. Every time you eat garbage when you committed to nutrition, you're training yourself that future plans don't matter in present moments. Every time you hit snooze when you set an alarm, you're training yourself not to trust your own decisions. This training is constant. You're either training discipline or training its opposite. There is no neutral. Your neural pathways are being carved by repetition, and those pathways will determine your capacity for discipline in every other area of life. The man who cannot force himself to train when he doesn't feel like it will struggle to do any difficult thing when motivation is absent. The man who caves to physical comfort will cave to emotional comfort, intellectual comfort, spiritual comfort. Weakness in one domain bleeds into all domains. But the opposite is equally true. The man who trains despite not wanting to builds the capacity to act against feeling in every situation. The man who controls his eating builds impulse control that serves him in relationships, finance, and career. The man who maintains physical discipline builds a foundation of self-trust that cannot be taken from him. This is why the ancient Stoics emphasized physical training alongside philosophical study. They weren't separating mind and body. They understood these as interconnected systems, where discipline in one strengthens the other. Seneca practiced voluntary hardship regularly. Cold exposure, fasting, physical labor beyond what was required, not as punishment, but as trade. Ning. We should set aside certain days on which to content ourselves with very little food, he wrote, and make ready for harder times while they are still easy. He was training his body and mind simultaneously, teaching himself that comfort is optional, that he can function in deprivation, that his will is stronger than his circumstances. This training made him resilient when actual hardship came. He'd already faced voluntary discomfort so often that involuntary discomfort couldn't break him. This is practical stoicism. You deliberately choose physical challenge when you don't have to, in order to build capacity for when you must. You fast when food is available. You train when rest is easier. You choose cold when warm is an option, not because you're a masochist, but because you're building resilience systematically. Modern comfort is making men weak. Climate control, unlimited food, sedentary work, entertainment on demand. Your body never faces real challenge, so it never develops real capacity. Then when actual difficulty arrives, injury, illness, hardship, crisis, you have no reserves to draw from. The Stoic solution is voluntary hardship, regular exposure to controlled discomfort. Not extreme, sustainable, not punitive, training. You're deliberately keeping your physical capacity higher than your current needs so that when needs spike, you can meet them. Let's make this concrete with a basic framework. Daily minimums. These are non-negotiable regardless of circumstances. Movement of some kind. Real food, not processed garbage. Adequate sleep. These aren't goals to achieve. They're baselines to maintain. You're not trying to be impressive. You're maintaining your vehicle. Weekly challenges. Something that pushes beyond your comfort zone. Heavy lifting. Prolonged cardio. Flexibility work. Cold exposure. You're not trying to break records. You're keeping your physical resilience active, reminding your body and mind that you can do hard things. Monthly tests. Something that scares you a little. A heavy deadlift, a long run, a sustained fast. You're calibrating your actual capacity versus your perceived limits. Most men dramatically underestimate what they're capable of because they never test themselves. This framework isn't about becoming an athlete. It's about maintaining physical discipline as a foundation for all other discipline. The man who skips daily movement will skip daily work. The man who avoids weekly challenge will avoid necessary risk. The man who never tests himself will never trust himself. Your body gives you immediate feedback that your mind often doesn't. You can lie to yourself about whether you're being productive, whether you're making progress, whether you're living according to your values. Your body doesn't let you lie. The weight either moves or it doesn't. The distance either gets covered or it doesn't. The fast either gets completed or it doesn't. This honest feedback is valuable. It cuts through rationalization and forces confrontation with reality. Are you actually disciplined or just telling yourself you are? Your physical practice answers this question daily. Consider what happens when you miss a workout you planned. The immediate effect is minor. One missed session doesn't change your fitness significantly. But the psychological effect is major. You've just trained yourself that your commitments are negotiable, that future use plans don't present you, that you can't be trusted. Do this repeatedly and you build a self-image of unreliability. Your subconscious learns that you don't follow through. This belief then colors every other commitment you make. Why bother planning anything when you know you probably won't do it? Why set goals when you have proof you don't honor them? This is how physical weakness creates mental weakness, not through the actual physical capacity, but through the pattern of failed commitments that erodes self-trust. The inverse builds self-trust systematically. Every time you train when you don't want to, you're proving you can override immediate impulse for long-term commitment. Every time you choose nutrition over convenience, you're demonstrating delayed gratification capacity. Every time you push through discomfort, you're expanding your tolerance for difficulty. This evidence accumulates. Your subconscious notes that you do what you say you'll do, that you can be trusted, that you're capable of difficulty. This belief then empowers every other area of your life. You attempt bigger things because you have proof you follow through. You commit more boldly because you know you honor commitments. This is the mental armor physical discipline creates, not the muscles themselves, but the self-trust, pain tolerance, and impulse control that training systematically builds. The Stoics weren't bodybuilders, but they maintained physical discipline because they understood this connection. They knew that a weak body signaled a weak will. That physical indulgence indicated mental indulgence. That control over the body was prerequisite for control over anything else. You cannot think clearly when your body is flooded with inflammatory food, sleep-deprived, sedentary. Your brain is part of your body. When your body is in chaos, your mind operates in chaos. When your body is disciplined, your mind can access clarity. This is why your first task every day should be physical. Before you check messages, consume content, or react to the world, you do something physical. You prove to yourself that you control your body, not the other way around. You start the day with a win that's entirely yours. Most men start their day by immediately giving their attention to others. They check their phone, read news, respond to messages. They're in reactive mode before they're even fully awake. Then they wonder why they feel powerless, overwhelmed, behind all day. Start with the body, movement, training, cold shower. Something that demands your will override your impulse. Something that proves you're in control. This sets the frame for your entire day. You've already done something difficult. Everything else is easier by comparison. This is practical stoicism, not philosophical theory. Behavioral engineering. You're structuring your day so that discipline is reinforced from the moment you wake, so that your first victory builds momentum for subsequent ones. Consider the difference between two men facing the same difficult day. One has already trained, eaten according to plan, moved his body deliberately. One has hit snooze multiple times, skipped his workout, eaten garbage. Who do you think has more mental resilience for the challenges ahead? Same external circumstances, completely different internal resources. The difference was made in the morning through physical discipline that built mental capacity. This isn't abstract. You can feel this difference in your own experience. The days you train before anything else, you're more focused, more resilient, more capable. The days you skip training, you're more scattered, more reactive, more easily overwhelmed. Your body state determines your mental state. The Stoics knew this viscerally. They lived in a time when physical weakness meant death, in combat, from illness, from the environment. Modern men are insulated from these consequences, so physical weakness feels optional. It's not. It just kills you more slowly, through depression, anxiety, lack of resilience, inability to handle stress. You need physical discipline not to look good, but to function well, to have the mental armor that lets you face difficulty without collapsing, to maintain the energy and clarity that complex problems demand, to prove to yourself daily that you're in control. Start here. Commit to daily movement, not elaborate workouts. Movement. Walk. Lift. Stretch. Something that gets your body working. Make this non-negotiable for 30 days. Track it. Be honest about whether you did it or made excuses. At the end of 30 days, assess. How do you feel mentally? How's your discipline in other areas? How's your self-trust? Most men will see dramatic improvement not because their fitness changed significantly, but because they practiced daily commitment and honored it. This is the foundation. Daily physical discipline that builds mental discipline. From here, everything else becomes possible. Without this foundation, you're building on sand. With it, you're building on stone. The work is simple, not easy. Simple. Move your body daily. Choose discomfort regularly. Test yourself occasionally. Do this consistently regardless of motivation, convenience, or results. The training is the point. The transformation is the byproduct. Your body is the first and last thing you truly own. Everything else can be taken. Your body remains yours until death. Treat it accordingly, not with obsession, but with respect. Not with punishment, but with discipline. Not for others, but for yourself. This is the armor. This is how you build a foundation that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. This is how you prove to yourself that you're capable of sustained difficulty. This is where mental resilience begins. In the gym, on the trail, in the cold water, anywhere you choose, discomfort to build capacity. Chapter 5. The Mathematics of Enough, Escaping the Hedonic Treadmill. You will never have enough if you don't know what enough is. No amount of money, status, achievement, or validation will satisfy you because you're running on a treadmill that speeds up every time you think you're close to the goal. This is the hedonic treadmill, and it's destroying your peace while masquerading as ambition. The Stoics understood a truth that modern consumer culture actively suppresses. Satisfaction is internal, not external. You're not poor because you lack resources. You're poor because you lack boundaries around desire. You're not unsuccessful because you haven't achieved enough. You're unsuccessful because you keep moving the goalposts. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, wrote extensively about this trap. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor, he observed. He wasn't romanticizing poverty. He was diagnosing the disease of infinite desire. You see this disease everywhere in modern life. Men making six figures who feel broke. Men with successful businesses who feel like failures. Men with beautiful partners who still browse dating apps. Men with fit bodies who still feel inadequate. The external keeps improving while the internal satisfaction stays static or declines. Why? Because they never did the math. They never calculated enough. They accepted culture's premise that more is always better, that satisfaction comes from accumulation, that the next level will finally deliver the peace the current level didn't. This is a lie that keeps you producing, consuming, and never arriving. Marcus Aurelius had unlimited wealth and absolute power. He could have indulged every appetite, collected every treasure, pursued every pleasure. Instead, he lived with remarkable simplicity and wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." He had learned through direct experience what most men never discover. External abundance doesn't create internal satisfaction. The mathematics of happiness are internal. Until you solve them internally, no external number will be enough. So what is enough? This isn't a universal answer. It's personal calculation every man must do for himself. But most men never do it. They let advertisers, influencers, and their own unexamined ego tell them what they should want. Then they chase these borrowed desires, wondering why achievement feels hollow. Here's the framework for calculating enough. Subsistence needs: food, shelter, safety, health, the baseline for survival. Most men in developed countries exceed this without thinking about it, yet they experience anxiety as if they're on the edge of destitution. This is psychological, not material poverty. Comfort needs: beyond survival, but below luxury. Reliable housing, nutritious food, basic health care, simple recreation. This level provides security and ease without extravagance. For most men, this is achievable with moderate effort and creates significant life quality improvement over subsistence. Freedom needs: the resources required for autonomy. Enough that you're not enslaved by financial pressure. Enough that you can make decisions based on values rather than desperation. This number is higher than comfort, but lower than most men assume. Legacy needs: resources to support dependents, contribute to community, leave something behind. This is meaningful surplus beyond personal needs. Most men conflate this with luxury, but legacy needs are about responsibility and contribution, not consumption. Everything beyond these four categories is luxury, excess, or ego. Not necessarily bad, but not necessary. When you're pursuing beyond legacy needs, you're no longer meeting needs, you're feeding appetite, and appetite is infinite. The trap is that culture deliberately conflates categories. It sells luxury as freedom, excess as legacy, ego as identity. You're told that true freedom requires millions, that legacy means empire building, that inadequate consumption means inadequate worth. All lies designed to keep you producing, buying, and never satisfied.